In this video, we're talking about the April Brewers Cup in Bangkok, and we're meeting up with the winner, Justin Tan. Welcome. My name is Patrick Rolfe, and this is Coffee with April. For this episode, we are going to talk about the April Brewers Cup because right at the end of 2023, we had the third edition of the competition. We went to Bangkok in Thailand, met up with 18 different competitors that competed over who becomes the best April brewer, basically in Thailand. We had competitors mainly from the country, but also traveling in from neighboring countries. And as always, we just want to thank everyone involved in this competition. We can't do this without our local partners, and we can't do this without our international partners, for this case, Option O, and Triup for supplying the green coffee, right? So all of this, or the journey behind this competition, started basically with us wanting to see and test what can you actually do with April Brewers. Obviously, it's something that we use every single day here at April, but we're really curious to see what users around the world are also doing with it, right? So one, we started the home coffee brewing videos as well, which you can see here on YouTube, and two, we started this competition format, and we're really excited to be able to do it. And again, this was the third total competition. Now, for those of you that don't know, the way that it works is that we have the competition in two different rounds. So in the first round, we have 18 people going up, basically three against each other, and brewing the same coffee using the same water, but whatever other equipment they want to, apart from the fact that they need to use an April brewer, and it's up to them which kind of brewer they do. Then three judges evaluates these cups of coffees, picks the winner, and that winner goes into the final. And for the final, we have a Brewers Cup format, which basically means a 10-minute long presentation in front of three judges and a head judge, where the competitors is supposed to serve three identical cups of coffee used with that same coffee and present why the coffee is tasting the way they do from a brewing perspective. So one of the things that is important with this competition is the fact that we've locked in the coffee that the competitors are using. So each competitor is using the same coffee, and it comes from a green coffee sponsor, Triup, and then is roasted locally. This time together or with Preeti, our local organizer. So that's a really interesting format, and it allows you, especially in that final segment of the competition, to focus more on that brewing. We don't want this to be a green coffee competition, and we want it to be a competition that everyone can get involved in and showcase those brewing skills. Now, the winner of the Bangkok edition of the April Brewers Cup this year was Justin Tan, so big congratulations to him. We're really excited to see what he will do next. I know he's going to go up and compete in this National Brewers Cup in the future as well, and as part of him winning, it's going to be to have myself and April supporting him in that journey, right? Now, the next step of this video is basically going to be a little bit of a first seeing Justin actually present his recipe, or the recipe he used in the competition, but then we'll sit down and we have a Zoom call with him, basically, that we record a little bit of interview with him. So without further ado, we're going to move into seeing the recipe that Justin used, and then we're going to have a little bit of a chat with him.
Hi, I'm Justin. I'm the April Brewers Cup winner, Thailand edition. Today, I'll be showing you my winning recipe. So, I'll be brewing this Finca Soledad from Ecuador, a typical Maharado from Oma Coffee Roasters in Hong Kong. Right. So, I'll be dosing 13.5 grams of coffee, and a total water of 210 grams. So I'll be using two different temperatures. I'll be using 92 degrees for my first pour and 85 degrees for my second pour. So I'm doing two pours today. So let's start. First, a 70 gram circle pour to evenly saturate the grounds. And I let that sit for 45 seconds. So first pour will extract the aromatics and the acidity of my coffee, and I make sure I evenly saturate the grounds to have a balanced extraction. Then my second pour at 45 seconds will be split into a 70-gram circle pour and a 70-gram center pour. So first, 70-gram circle pour, then a 70-gram center pour. So I use a lower temperature on the second pour, as I believe it gives me a better texture and a better sweetness. And I didn't drop it too much, so I still can get a higher intensity with this dose, lower dose, because I find that lower dose gives me a better flavor balance and intensity. So in the cup, I'll be looking for a very clean, transparent, bright and sweet brew, and very well balanced, because I want a well balanced cup. And the brew time, I was looking for around 2 minutes 40 seconds to 3 minutes. And I make sure all the water has drawn down completely. So I didn't lift it off before, I just let it draw down completely around 2 minutes 40 seconds to 3 minutes. And I find that 2 pours give me a better consistency over many brews. And I don't really like to agitate the coffee a lot. I let the water completely extract the coffee itself. So I find that less agitation gives me a better balance and a better, cleaner texture and a better aftertaste. So I think this will be finished around 3 minutes. Alright. So this recipe is very simple and all of you can follow it. It will give you a very balanced, clean and a transparent cup. I hope you enjoy the recipe. Enjoy brewing.
Cool. So, hi, Justin. It's nice to meet you again. It's been like a few weeks since you competed and won the April Brewers Cup in Bangkok, right? And we just saw your recipe now, and super excited to just ask you some questions about it and just know more about kind of how it feels to win as well. But before all of that, do you just want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction to who you are, how did you end up in coffee? What's your background and what are you up to?
So I'm Justin. So I'm both Malaysian and Thai. I started coffee when I was really young. I just fell in love with I had a brew of AeroPress and it was great. So that's how I started in coffee. And then I just got interested. I traveled around the world and I ended up in the rabbit hole of coffee. And then currently I'm doing part-time work at Pretty. Yeah.
A local coffee shop in Bangkok for those of you that don't know, and you should definitely check it out. I mean, you mentioned the rabbit hole of coffee, and I think we're all kind of stuck there somehow, right? And it's kind of a big one, right? You mentioned you've been traveling a little bit as well, and like exploring coffee. Is there anything internationally that you've been very inspired by or extra kind of interested in?
I really like Scandinavian, like that. That's why I really fell in love with coffee. And really, it's like my style of coffee is how I brew and it's what I like to drink, like Scandinavian coffee. And if in Asia, like for the past couple of years, I've been liking Korea and Hong Kong a lot. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you
But
think it's a
mainly I like
do you think
very
there's a
clean
big
coffee.
do you think there's like a big difference between, let's say, the Korean, Hong Kong and Bangkok kind of coffee scene? Like what are the main differences?
Uh, so Bangkok is complicated. Bangkok is like a place with a lot of like different styles, but there's starting to be a bit more modern coffee, which is what I'm interested in. But of course, there's still a lot of those old school, very medium dark roast. But as I went to Korea and Hong Kong, I'm seeing more very light roast, maybe medium side. And that's why I really like those two countries. It's like I think I had decent brews at every single place I went. Bangkok is like a still a growing country, but it's getting better. The past couple years, I've been enjoying the coffee a lot. But back then, a bit harder. I had to order coffee, like in from internationally so I enjoy it. But it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah, sure. That's something I'm noticing as well. When the more I visit Bangkok as well, I can see that there's really a progression in terms of quality, which is really cool. So at some point, because if I understand it correctly, the April Brewers Cup was actually not your first competition. So you've been competing before in coffee, right? Do you want to tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about why did you start competing in coffee, and what kind of competitions have you been competing in so far?
So I competed in coffee. Just I think what made me fall in love with coffee was the competition side for some reason. Just my like the reason I fell in love with the Aeropress is because I had a he's the first Aeropress champion of Thailand. And it's like I fell in love with the style of competition, the way they brew. And as I dive in deeper, I just was obsessed with it. Like I analyzed and all those stuff. And then I just realized competition is always what I love since I was young in any kind of sports or music or stuff like that. So I was been interested in competitions because I see it as growth because I have got a lot of first place, last place, second place my whole life, and it's mainly about growth and experience, and I love connections because I would say I'm pretty extrovert kind of person, and I really like connections during competitions and growth, and it increases my self-belief. That's why I really wanted to do competitions, and I always been interested in Brewers Cup. So I'll say my first big competition, which was now we're in 2024, was in 2023, the National Brewers Cup. So because I'm still very young, and I just started was allowed to compete in coffee. The rest I was just like mostly behind the scenes before that, but I waited until I felt like okay, it's my time to compete. Then I started, and now my goal is just to keep competing and growth, and then hopefully win someday, maybe. But it's mainly about growth and connection, I'll say.
I think that makes so much sense, and I think it's for anyone that eventually wants to, let's say, win a world championship. Let's say we're talking Brewers Cup here, then it has to be about those connect. It has to be about other values than winning, because winning is something that very few people do in the end of the day, right? And there's so much else to gain from competing that isn't just about taking home that first prize. And of course, you want to win. I mean, you won the April Brewers Cup,
Yeah,
so you did
yeah,
something right, right? So winning obviously has its merits. There's no doubt about that. But on the journey, there's so much value in those other connections that you do get out of competing. And as you say, it's an opportunity to learn more about yourself, understand yourself better, and just grow individually and become a little bit more confident, I think. And then um, feeling that it also gets easier to compete the more you compete, right? So you just build up more value the longer you kind of keep on going. Um, which I think is very important, right? So let's talk a little bit more specific about the April Brewers Cup and your experience there before we kind of dive into your recipe as well. What made you sign up for the April Brewers Cup in the first place?
Okay, maybe I sound a bit um self-confident in this scenario. I always loved the April Brewer. I had it since the first version, and it just because I love your coffee, and it just clicked. Like that was the brewer. Like I felt like it was made for me, and I just really deep dive into everything, like everything you have ever said, and I just deep dive, and I felt like this was my dripper, and I just wanted to show that uh all the times I've been brewing with the April Brewer that I could win with this dripper, and I just want to showcase my ability of why I brew with it almost literally every day. And of course, improve in competition because of the competition format. I felt like it's something I wanted to really do because in Brewers Cup it's really green coffee based and less skill, but of course skill is important. But like a competition format like this is skill based, no green coffee, and everything is about your preparation. Your preparation that has nothing to do with like money or anything really. That's why I really want to compete in it. Also because I want to show that I'm really good with this brew.
Which obviously you did, right? Which we'll come back to that recipe as well. But I think you're touching on something very important here, and it's first of all, it's important to say that there's a lot of really great stuff with the official Brewers Cup, and in the end of the day, April Brewers Cup is really a preparation for the Brewers Cup, right? But you're right in the sense that it's becoming a bit of a green coffee competition more so than a brewing competition, right? Not saying that the people winning are not great brewers as well. They obviously are. But it's also all about, can you find that amazing green coffee, and then you're already gonna have a head start, right? So as you say, the April Brewers Cup is really about kind of neutralizing that and making sure that everyone that goes into the competition is on the same playing field, right? So it's really about that brewing, and then in the final about explaining how and why you're doing what you're doing, right? Let's have a little bit of a look of on the recipe specifically, right? So um, just like a few questions, and maybe before I kind of dig into it, like what was the most important thing with this recipe for you? Like when you got the competition coffee, for example, did you spend a lot of time trying a lot of different recipes, or did you find this recipe pretty much from the beginning?
So I have a couple recipes, and I adapted. So I tried my first brew. I actually not first brew. I say cupping. I did a cupping to see the how the coffee tastes and everything. And then I decide, okay, this is a very dense coffee. This is, oh, I'm like guessing in my head because like with my experience of tasting a lot of coffee, I'm guessing, okay, is this a Costa Rica? What process? And I take that in mind. And then I start a brewing process. So I did a two pour and a three pour of my original recipe, and I just chose which one I like more. And then I just build on from that, which I ended up with a two pour recipe because of the flow rate and the flavor profile and everything. That's why I decided on this specific recipe.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the that two because I'm interested, as it is a two pour system, which is similar to, let's say, what I would do myself, right? But you have changed the water pouring a little bit, right? So first of all, you're starting then with 13.5 grams of coffee as your dose, and then you're running 210 grams of brewing water on the coffee, right? And what kind of made you do the separation of basically then, right, you have a 70-gram pour and then 140-gram pour, kind of like easily explained over those two pours, right? And what's the main difference there, right? And what do you find is the kind of the biggest value doing this rather than, let's say, doing 100-100? or 105, 105 to get your 210?
So I like it depends on the coffee, but my range is normally between 60 to 100 for the first pour, no matter what. Like I like to do a big amount of water on the first pour. But for this pour, I just wanted a bit more sweetness. I find that if I do more on the second pour, but I still want the structure to have a very even pour. So 70, 70, 60, 60, something like that. So I could replicate like 100, like a very balanced brew without like too much agitation, because I don't like too much agitation. I like let the coffee extract itself. But I find I highlight a flavor note that I really like from the coffee, more with more water in the second pour. And I still wanted like a very equal pour, so 70-70. So this is why I decided on that. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. And you said you find that you get a sweeter cup if your second pour, basically the larger the second pour is. Was that correct?
Yes. And
Okay, that's really interesting.
better mouthfeel. Yeah.
Better muffin. Okay, that's something I'm gonna look into as well. And then you have 45 seconds in between the first and the second pour, pretty much. Or that's not correct, but basically you pour for maybe then 10, 15 seconds, and then at 45 seconds you pour the second pour. Have you experimented with a lot of different times there? Like, have you done 35?
I do
Have you
that a
done
lot.
1 minute? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. In most of my brews, I do that a lot. And for me, that like is both factor on the intensity of the coffee and the sweetness, but it depends on the brew. Sometimes if I go too long with a specific coffee, it becomes very dry and stuff like that. Like if with lighter roast coffee, I would not go above 45 seconds. Like
Okay,
because I will get some dryness, but 45 will get, for me, is where this coffee gets its best intensity. I also built this 45 seconds due to the water that we use. It's a very low content water, low intensity. So I try to get the most intensity without getting like crazy dryness.
But still increasing. Yeah, cool. Which I think makes a lot of sense. And for those of you watching, you don't necessarily know the water that we did use, but it is a very special water, right? I was quite surprised the first time I found it, because I discovered it in Bangkok because of a homebrewing video we did together with which also competed in the competition. And she used it and actually thought it was quite tasty. So I started to use it myself because water is a big issue in Bangkok. I would say, or like the water filtration systems used is also a bit of a difference. But that's really interesting. So then you actually adjusted the amount of time in between the pours based on the water that was using that. Did you then did you use your own water in the final round?
Yeah.
Or so did you change that then? Did you adjust the time or did you keep the same time?
I kept the same time just to not mess myself too much. But if in a perfect world, like one brew, I would have done 30, 35 seconds, but I just could not get the timing.
Sure. I think it's an interesting one, especially when your second pour is so much longer, because and it's a question to you as well here. How big of a difference? Like, was there a difference between the first recipe? Because in the first round you're brewing one coffee, and the second round you're brewing three coffees at the same time. So did you change the recipes in between, or was the recipe you used for the first round based on the recipe that would suit you the best for the final?
It was the opposite. I say I used the first round recipe for the final. That's what I would say. I used the same recipe. Originally, I had kind of a different temperature on the second round, but for on the day when I tasted it, right before, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go with this recipe. I don't want to change. Sometimes I get too stressed and it's like, oh man, should I really do this? Should I really do this? I just wanted something that I knew worked from after the first round. So I stick to it. But the pouring structure was the same. It's just the play of temperature that I changed.
let's talk about those temperatures because you say then that you're basically using two different temperatures, right? So
Yeah.
you're starting your first pour with a hotter temperature at 92, and then the second pour is at 85 then, right? What is the main argument between first of all the temperatures itself and then also the two different temperatures?
So when I brew light roast, I believe 92 is enough. Like for me, I believe 92 is high enough to get the bright acidities that I like. 92 is enough. I don't believe doing like over too much, maybe 93. But for me, I like the brew with 92. And I most of the time when I brew, if I don't have two kettles, I would open the kettle and let the water cool down anyway. And I find I get a better mouthfeel and a better sweetness. So if I want a very sweet brew, most of the time I'll use a lower temperature. That's why I normally do it. And it's what I normally do most of the time. Two temperatures brew. Just depends on how I want to play it. Sometimes I even do a first pour with a very low temperature. Just depends on the cup I want to get. But for this specific coffee, I guess it was like a SL or something from tasting. So I just couldn't get the SL flavors, like the dark fruit notes, like the berries, stuff like that from low temperature first pour. And I didn't want to lose that flavor. So I stick to 92 and 85 for the second pour because I find that was the pour that still give me a lot of sweetness, but without losing the intensity. If I drop it too much, like if I drop from 92 and then I finish with a 70-degree last pour or something like that, I still wanted to get the intensity. And everything was built around basically the first round water. Yeah, because if I drop it too much, the intensity will be very low with that water.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
but what was the water you actually used in the final then?
So it's a similar water to the first round, but I use aqua with it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which mineral? The like a mix of all, like the whole pack, or just a little bit of the aqua code? The whole pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The whole pack, and then I diluted down to, I think it was 50 ppm.
Yeah. Okay. So still low, definitely on the low side, right? Yeah. Okay, that was actually super interesting, right? And I'll make sure to, because I haven't experienced so much with different temperatures in terms of brewing as well. So that's definitely something that I'm myself gonna kind of jump back into and see how that can improve the coffee. I think it's a very interesting thing. I think for example, brewing with two different waters in the kettles would also be really interesting. That's something I haven't seen much of, but I think that's something that can definitely be done to kind of improve general quality, more or less. So there's always so much you can do, right? Let's talk a little bit about the overall competition. Like, how do you feel now after like it's been a few weeks? What's kind of the next step? Are you going to be competing again? Has it changed anything? Like, what was the main things you kind of got out of the competition?
A lot of self-belief, like, oh man, I can win a brewing competition. Like, okay, my skills are there. It's just I need to get everything backstage and all the stuff that the preparation right, and I could win it. Because this time, compared to my brewers, I had a team at the Brewers, but since personally my shop was the one hosting it, I did all the work myself, which is tough, but it showed that if I put my mind into it, I could do it. And I've been doing, I my life is still the same. I still work pretty, but I just did a little takeover recently for fun with my win, and yeah, I think I'm just a bit more recognizable now.
Sure. Which is cool, right? I
After
mean, it's
winning
a
competition.
yeah. No, definitely. I think that's also one of the perks that kind of comes with it, right? Like you get more, the industry get to know you a little bit better. Not just for winning. I think it's true for everyone competing, right? Because also you competitors get to meet each other as well. And I think whenever you meet other people competing, you have this kind of mutual respect for them, right? And you kind of get to know them as well, right? So is there any new competition coming up that you're gonna be joining or?
Focus mainly on Brewers Cup. Like that's my dream, and that's what I mainly want to go for. I tried to do too many things. Maybe last year I tried to practice cup taster and all this stuff, but I realized if I after doing the Brewers Cup, I realized that if I put focus on one competition, I will do a whole lot better. I think it's better for my personal life and better for my like self-belief. Yeah.
I think that's so, and I've seen a lot of people do these kind of double competitions, and I've tried it myself as well. And I think again, back to what we said in the beginning of this talk as well, is that it's not just about that competition. It's not just about winning or losing. It's also about what's your kind of balance, right? Are you in a good position in life? Can you, do everything else you need to do and be competing? I'm a big fan of trying to integrate competitions as something you kind of do on almost a daily basis in a way that it functions with everything else you do rather than just kind of let that take over because you're doing too much, right? So I think having that healthy balance, it's important, right? And also then as part of winning the April Brewers Cup is that you have April's full support in your next competition, right? So I'm gonna be quite excited to see what you what you will do or what you want to do, right? And then obviously, we're here to just support you in whatever you choose, right? When is the next competition actually? Has it been announced?
I have no idea. So depends on the timing, but because this year I think I have a busy schedule. If I felt like okay, my schedule is too busy, I'm gonna wait till next year, like the year after, because I want to have full focus without any like interruptions with my competition. But if everything goes right, like if I have free time and everything, it'll be I think middle of the year, same as last year, somewhere in June, July, I'm guessing.
Okay, awesome. That's going to be super exciting. Then you and me need to get back in touch soon and start talking about competition coffee and stuff, right?
Yes.
Because we have the harvest from some of the best farms kind of coming up at this time of the year, right? Awesome. I think that was pretty much it for this time. Unless do you feel you have anything else you want to share with like any tips for future competitors? I don't know.
Tips. Just a lot of practice. Like literally just a lot of practice and try to think outside the box. Like try to not like be stuck to what you think is right. If you play around a lot, it might suddenly work. Like that's what I normally do. I just like never stay fixed with my recipe. Always try to see if you can make that recipe better, and then you can then decide which recipe you're gonna use. You always try to make it better. That's what I think. A lot of practice, think outside the box. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to wrap it up as well. And I think the thing is you can always make coffee better, right? I think that's really the most important part here, right? There's always room to make it better. And what keeps you from doing that is often just yourself or your own willingness to practice, right? So practice, as you say, and keep an open mind and eventually you're gonna win a competition, right? And hopefully a few more in the future. Very cool. Just want to say, thank you, Justin. Thank you for competing. Really appreciate that in the first place. Thank you for sharing your recipe and taking the time to meet up here. And as always, thank you to everyone tuning in as well, right? And I'm looking forward to start coaching you for the next Brewers Cup as well. So make sure you get in touch when that's about to happen. And yeah, just again, thank you for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, man. So thank you again to Justin for taking the time to, first of all, compete in the competition, but then sit down with us and also share his winning recipe with all of you. Now, the April Brewers Cup is just getting started. We have more competitions planned out for this year. And if you are interested in hosting one of these competitions, maybe competing in one of them or helping out in any kind of way, you're always welcome to either just comment below or shoot us an email via the website, because we're looking to grow this into something that we can do continuously throughout the years and basically build a community of all of the April Brewers around the world, right? So with that, as always, we want to recommend you to sign up on Patreon. That's where you know everything before everyone else knows. That's where we have more in-depth conversations about the new stuff coming up. And that's when you're going to know when the next April Brewers competition is next. Now, as always, your commenting, questioning, subscribing, all of this really helps. Again, this is all about building that community, so you're more than welcome to do that. And with that said, we just want to thank you all for watching as per usual and wish you a good day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.